Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 226, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is
Lotus Prince.
And we have a wonderful continuation of our discussion on William Shatner.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that.
Weren't we going to go over the books of Richard Bachman? Is that what we were going to do?
What's a Bachman?
What's a Tim Conway?
Did you know that Pac-Man was originally going to be called Bachman?
Bakuman. This is terrible. That's just terrible. Yeah, we actually are throwing out all those plans and going back to our discussion of Suda 51, Goichi Suda, and his fantastic career, and also his company Grasshopper Manufacturer. We left off on after doing the
original No More
Heroes. Okay, so there are a couple ones that I did want to quickly go over because we kind of we skipped right from Killer 7 to No More Heroes, because like No More Heroes is the star of the show, because that is the game that like exemplifies him, right? It is the perfect title to get all in on him. But I did want to say that he did have a stint in doing some licensed titles on the PS2. So one of them was a Gaiden kind of storyline, a sidetracked kind of storyline for.
Whoa, funny
Samurai.
You should bring that up.
Samurai Champloo called Sidetracked. And I absolutely loved Samurai Champloo when it was on, and just like Cowboy Bebop, I should say that I absolutely loved Cowboy Bebop, but I never saw every single episode until just recently, because I loved it so much I didn't want it to end.
You know what's funny with Samurai Champloo? I think I've seen like 3 episodes, and one of them was the final one.
Yeah, I still don't know how it ends, and it's very much like I love this show, but like I know it sounds insane to some people, but like I kind of just like having the memory of liking the 5 episodes that I've caught on TV, and then like I didn't seek it out because like I don't want it to end. I always want there to be a possibility of seeing a new episode. But I know
my philosophy is you're just making it end far earlier.
Yeah.
There's 26 episodes. No, there's only 25. All right.
But I will go back and watch it. I promise, because I made myself do it with Samurai Cowboy Bebop, and I loved it. Even the movie, I thought the movie was fantastic.
The movie's great.
Yeah, that fight scene. Oh my god,
that shit's unstoppable.
It's so brutal too. It was just like looked like it hurt.
Or even the first fight scene when Mr. Bebop, when Spike is fighting Elektra, when they're like testing each other out, that was great with the mop.
Yeah, the whole. You know what? Most anime movies I'm ambivalent on, because like for big series, I should say, because like a lot of them are out of continuity and they don't matter.
Yeah, they don't play into the big story, but that's kind of the whole Cowboy Bebop series. It's just here's an adventure that happens, so the movie's another one. Why not?
They only really have like just like X-Files has those episodes that pertain to the overarching story, and actually most X-Files fans actually don't like them as much. They like the Monster of the Week episodes better. And Cowboy Bebop is like that as well. They have like the overarching story episodes, which are fantastic, by the way. The best episodes.
Yeah, they're still very good.
That middle episode where you find out about his past and just get glimpses of it is like him falling out of that
the window.
Church. It's so good, so fucking good. One of the best episodes of anime I've ever seen in my life is that episode with the song. That's so good. But yeah, Samurai Champloo. Getting back to that. This game is not fantastic. But
it's got some Suda 51 moments, but you can take it or leave it.
It does have some fun trippiness to it that I think is worth playing at least a little bit for. And I also thought that the 3D renderings in the FMV for the characters looked really good. I thought they looked like excellent 3D representations of the characters. But yeah, like the rave mode is so cool when you go.
Yeah, I
into
was
it.
gonna bring that up. When you
Yeah.
get like a certain kill combo or something, all of a sudden, you and the opponents become silhouettes, and there's like this crazy like psychedelic rainbow background with this awesome freaking music playing
The
as you're just
music,
cutting people up.
mwah, yeah, it's just so good. That is the reason to play it. Is that rave mode? It's
It
just so
kind of
much fun.
is like
Yeah.
that song is great.
It's it. You get amped up when you play it, when you're playing the game and you're slicing up punks like Kill Bill style with the
Yeah.
silhouettes. Yeah, it's just so good. Um, and then he also did a Japanese only game pertaining to Blood Plus in a very kind of similar fashion.
Oh wow.
I've never played this game because it was Japanese only, but I've known about it for a long time because I've been a Suda 51 fan. I think did we miss Michigan Report from Hell? Yes, we did. We forgot to mention also Michigan Report from Hell.
A game so obscure, Suda 51 himself didn't know it came out in Europe.
Yeah, it is in English, but only in PAL territories. So you have to track that down and find a way to import play it. But
Yeah, and it's stupid expensive now, by the way.
yeah, and it's honestly not worth it.
And you can't even find an English case and manual version anymore. Like if you buy a Spanish version or Italian version, like it has language settings, it's not a big deal. But if you're really like just intent on getting like a copy from England, like I don't know how you're gonna do that.
So it's an interesting game because it's because of like the situation that you're in really never has been replicated. But like in the game, you are a cameraman for a news anchor.
Reporter.
Yeah, who is covering Cloverfield-esque invasion. Let's just say that. Where a town in Michigan is being attacked by otherworldly forces.
Well, no. It's Chicago.
Is it Chicago?
It is Chicago, Illinois. The reason the game's called Michigan is because
it's on Lake Michigan.
It's on Lake Michigan. And you know what's even funnier is that it's called Michigan Report from Hell in Europe, but in Japan it's just called Michigan. So like people were like, "Oh, Report from Hell, Hell, Michigan." No coincidence.
But like he knows so much about American culture and geography for some reason. like why would anybody know that Chicago is off of Lake Michigan?
Yeah, the game's called Michigan. Duh, it's in Michigan. Nope.
Yeah. And so what can happen in this game is like the life meter that you have basically is the life meter of the anchor, not yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to keep them alive, or else they die and get replaced by a different.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. There was one part I was playing. I was showing Mr. Ryu a little bit of the game early on, and there's a part where the reporter's walking forward, and you see like a little spider coming down its web, and I was like, I just want to see what happens, because I was waiting for it to be like, cameraman, where were you? But like it lands on the reporter, she just goes, and falls down, and I'm like, huh? And then it fades to black, and I'm like, oh, redo. But then it's a different reporter.
Yeah, so
I'm
your
like,
lives
no!
are actually the other reporters like that they have on staff.
Yeah, I was like, oh jeez, I'm
like
sorry.
a different woman, a total different woman.
Yep.
It comes in as your next life.
I didn't realize I was that much of an asshole. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's also like notable for like the way you interact with like things is like you smack them with your camera.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it is a deeply weird game.
One thing I find
worth the price that it's fetching.
No, especially when it was released, it was like a budget title. But
yeah.
You know what I find kind of funny, by the way? It makes sense in universe, but it's also a way of just avoiding any kind of extra animations. Like if you approach like an obstacle on the ground, it's like, there's a tree branch on the road. Get rid of it, and if you say yes, then it just goes static, and then when it comes back, the branch is gone. Like you turned your camera off or whatever. So like just missing scenes in the game, but it makes sense in universe. Like, you don't need to film yourself taking the branch out of the way.
Yeah, it is not particularly good. It is a curiosity at best.
The reason to play it is the voice acting is, like, hilariously bad. Like, move over Resident Evil 1. Like, it is comical.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that even if you're a fan, it is like only for diehard fans, honestly.
Yeah, I actually did give it a shot because I'm a Suda 51 fan, and like with a guide, I'll play through it. Sure. But I was like, when I was just trying it out freestyle.
And then the next game from around this era is Contact on the original DS, that had a very kind of Earthboundish looking art style, so people were drawn to it initially.
I didn't realize that was Grasshopper.
It is. He was the producer on this title, not the director.
Okay.
But it is a very odd and weird game, but in a completely different way. It pretends to be like Earthbound or Mother, but it has very weird RPG like systems in it. So weird that in the very first encounter, I died 4 times in a row.
Jeez.
Against a single enemy, and I have never picked up the game since.
That you know what that makes me think of is like some of the Tales of games. If you crank the game to the hardest setting, which you're really not supposed to do, like you can go to and from on the fly.
Nocturne's like that too. Nocturne is so hard that you basically have to like on hard. The only way you play is as a new game plus.
Yeah, no, I remember Tales of Eternia, which is known in America as Tales of Destiny 2. If you set that game to hard, you have to grind like crazy on like slimes and dogs and mundane shit to fight the first like scripted encounter. Like, you get the shit beat out of you if you try that thing on hard. Like, it's ludicrous.
That's just a slog.
He's using like summons and shit, or not summons, but like whatever you call the elemental summons in that game. I forgot what they're called. Where they're doing their like elemental special move, and like you're not prepared for that.
Yeah, I think though, with some hindsight, maybe I can go back to this game, but honestly, even amongst big Grasshopper fans, this one barely gets mentioned. So like it's not part of the pantheon of. It's not what you go to Suda 51 for. This game is not one of those titles, if you ask me. So, moving on from that, there was like another Flower, Sun, and Rain game. I don't know how it pertains.
Well, there's only one Flower, Sun, and Rain.
Oh,
but, like,
the DS
there's
version.
The DS version that we got. The original version was on PS2, which is Japan only.
Yeah, that's right. So this is actually a canonical sequel to Silver Case.
Yeah.
But I the only one person that I know of that has beaten it doesn't like it very much, and that is Old Man Stompy, our good friend.
There's another friend of ours from college who, I don't know if he beat it, but he at least played it. He's also not a fan.
Yeah, it's a deeply weird adventure game that intentionally wastes your time, apparently. Which, like
No More Heroes 1,
is a funny joke, but in hindsight, it's a funny joke.
Yeah, when it's a whole game of that, you're like,
Yeah, it's kind of like the fourth book of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy. The fourth book is a complete waste of your time on purpose. He did not want to write the book, and that is the joke of the book. It literally ends with a mystery that was already answered in the first book.
Nice.
Literally already had answered it in the series, and like I guess he assumed that people wouldn't remember it. But yeah, it's funny. It's a very funny joke in hindsight. But also, I read through that and told him to fuck off. It's like, oh, fuck you! You already told me this. I thought you were gonna lead up to something different. Nope. Moving on from that, lone Fatal Frame title, which is Fatal Frame 4.
Yeah,
You
that one's
actually do
Japan
know
only,
about this one,
but
right?
yeah, I've actually played through that game.
Yeah.
It's Japan only. I think, unfortunately, the reason it's Japan only is that there's a bunch of
It's a
bugs in
buggy
the
game.
game.
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible to perfect the game without a cheat device, so it just wasn't localized.
I think
But
fans
it's
have bug fixed it
oh, very
since then.
nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a reasonably solid title, and it felt pretty good to aim your camera with the Wiimote, which it was a pretty clever idea. Fighting some of the bosses felt a little easy though because you kind of have a lock-on ability,
Mm.
which is normally like in the previous Fatal Frame games, you have to beat the game and do extra modes to unlock that shit. So you could just do that in Fatal Frame 4, so it feels like easy mode. But it's still got some legitimate scares in it. Interesting themes like masks and the moon, and you're in like a mental hospital the whole game. That's just creepy environment when it's a horror game with ghosts. It's a pretty solid title. I will mention there is another Fatal Frame game that uses the Wiimote. It's the Wii remake of Fatal Frame
Yeah.
2. So there's
Only came out in Europe in English, I think.
yes. So
Yeah.
there's 3 Fatal Frame 2s. But I just want to point out though that yeah,
What's
Suda 51 and
considered the
Grasshopper did
best?
4.
I mean, there's the PS2 one, the Xbox Director's Cut.
Well, the
and then there's
PS2
the
one is
Wii one,
vanilla,
right?
so obviously
Yeah.
the director's cut overrides it. I would say it depends on what you're looking for.
Okay.
Does the Xbox version do 720p?
Pretty sure it does. Most Xbox games,
Alright.
like
Because
that
if
will
it
work
does, then that
right?
has the best presentation, and it has the extra ghosts and Ayane and Kasumi costumes from Dead or Alive. The Wii has some sort of unique ghost that I don't know who it is. I still need to play the game.
Mm.
It has light multiplayer capability in that if a second player aims where you're aiming when you're attacking a ghost, you can get like a synchronization shot, which is kind of clever. It's a little extra bonus. I don't know much beyond that though,
Yeah.
but it's a clever idea.
Gotcha. I haven't played this one yet, but I plan to. I have a modded Wii that I still have. I have the game on there, but
Yeah,
I didn't
like I
English.
used a guide to mod my Wii. Like the guide was written specifically for Xenoblade Chronicles. Like if
Yeah.
you want to play Xenoblade Chronicles, here's what you do because this is before we
It
knew
was
it would get
before we got it,
localized.
Yeah.
I basically did it for Fatal Frame 4. I was hyped as
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah. And then you have 5 after that on the Wii U that did come here.
Well, yeah, at least we got that. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good game too. I think that one was
It plays
fun.
very well. Plot, but
Yeah.
the water motif was pretty cool.
Gotcha. And then we finally get to No More Heroes 2: Desperate Struggle.
Yeah, that's a quality game.
I really love No More Heroes 2. It's not as impactful as the original game.
It's not
I
as
would say.
impactful, but it largely is upgraded.
So what it does continue the experience of what is fun about No More Heroes is the bosses and their personalities and the encounters that you have with them. And
Yes.
the bosses are almost like they're great. I mean, I love Destroy Man the second time around.
Oh my god.
Destroy
Well,
Man's
actually,
probably the best. He's just so good.
you know what I like though is that the game actually has 2 winks of missed opportunities in the first No More Heroes. Because remember the opening movie of No More Heroes and the trailer when he fights Helter Skelter?
Yeah.
Well, the first fight in No More Heroes
first
2
fight, yeah.
is his brother Skelter Helter, which is kind of funny. But like you actually get to do the fight,
And he
the
has like a
same-
revolver with revolvers all around it, isn't it?
yeah, it's fucking
It's
stupid.
amazing.
Well, that might have been Helter Skelter because Helter Skelter was a parody of like Dante from Devil May Cry, and Skelter Helter was a parody of Cloud from FF7. But also there's the big pull the rug out from under you moment in No More Heroes 1
Yeah.
was the level that was literally nothing but a long hallway with enemies in it. It's the most monotonous thing ever.
So funny.
But when you finally get to the boss, Let's Shake, that
He's
cutscene,
He's
that
great.
cutscene building up to the fight looks fucking awesome. And then somebody steals your kill, and you're like, "Are you what?"
He dies in like 3
all
seconds.
I did was the fucking hallway, and that was it.
It's so good.
In No More Heroes 2, you get the fight, not Let's Shake, but like the
Same thing.
earthquake machine
Yeah.
brain guy. It's like, you get to do it.
It's really great. the final battle is really stupid.
The final battle is actually kind of brilliant because it's a callback
Stupid
that I'm
and
not going to
brilliant.
spoil
Yeah.
that shows up a lot in No More Heroes 1 and
That's true.
yet does not factor into the plot.
Well, the thing is, like, you kind of forget about it.
Yes.
Because it is such a small detail, and then
Yes.
you're like, oh, he's behind all this? Jesus.
And his motivation makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's initially
It's stupid,
disappointing,
like the whole
but
thing's
like,
stupid, but it makes sense.
but conceptually really fantastic. It's kind of
Yes.
like the ending of like the Dark Tower. Like, everybody was like mad at first, but I think now it's considered brilliant.
Well, I mean, in No More Heroes 2, the character is just irritating.
Yeah.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
But again, who
it's the same thing with
and
the
the
Crimson
motivation
King.
is brilliant.
It's the same thing with the Crimson King in Dark
Well, the Crimson
Tower.
King was a shadow of his former self. In No More Heroes 2, you're like, this is the guy? I mean, I guess it's the same in that regard.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a major build up to something that has a terrible payoff. But
I will also say this, by the way, the fight with Margaret Moonlight might be my favorite boss of the two games.
It's really good.
I mean, Bad Girl's up there, but Margaret Moonlight,
awesome.
that fight and that song was cool as shit.
You fight the Gimps. Oh yeah, that's a lot.
Are you with Bad Girl? Yeah.
Yeah. But Destroy Man is my favorite. It's so funny.
Floating around.
The throbbing one.
Yeah. Come on, let's shake. Which hand should I shake? It doesn't matter. Whichever one you like. The one that's throbbing. It's like, oh, fuck this guy.
So good. I love it. And I also love the other playable character.
Yes, the one who fights Destroy Man.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Actually, there are two other playable characters, but that's the one that you play a few times.
Exactly. And then we have an iOS game that I've never heard of or played, Frog Minutes.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and you're never going to play it now because I'm sure it's not updated to work with current iOS platform because it's from 2011. But then you have like the HD era of Grasshopper Manufacturer, which I actually really like his HD era.
Yeah, this is where it really, like, one of the games I think is okay, but the others I think are fucking great.
Yeah, yeah, you know what? I really like this first one. Even if you just watch it for the cutscenes, I really love it. Shadows of the Damned.
That's the one that I say is okay.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I know.
It's fun to play. I mean, it's partially designed by Shinji Mikami, so like, it plays like Resident Evil 5, which means that the gameplay is quite good, like for its time.
Over the shoulder kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, again, like considering when it was made, like that was the way to play games like that. Like, it felt really good. The entire game, like kind of literally, the entire game is like one form or another of dick jokes.
Yeah.
That include the name of your buddy. Your own character's attitude is very entertaining. I mean, Suda 51's characters are always larger than life.
Yeah.
Ironically, one of
Garcia
my complaints,
fucking Hotspur.
Garcia fucking Hotspur. What I like
his actual middle name is fucking.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to mention. What I like, they never straight up confirm that it's fucking, but they do confirm that his middle initial is F, so it's probably it.
Yeah, no,
but
I mean, he if anybody was going to make his character just have that middle name, it's him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I would say though, for Shadows of the Damned, ironically, one of my complaints is the bosses, except for the first one.
It's front-loaded, yeah.
Like, there are the 3 Death Sisters. But when I was Let's Playing the game, I beat the second Death Sister, but I thought it was the first one back for round 2, and I was like, oh, that was a different boss. Like, because it's the first one but harder. I was like, oh man, like, I mean, Fleming, the character, the final boss, is kick-ass. His actual fight is okay. I mean, the standout fight is the harmonica guy, though, the very first boss. That
so
guy's
good.
Fucking scary.
I also love the voice acting is some of the best.
Yeah.
It's really fucking
It's
good.
very good. Oh, by the way, forgot to mention, soundtrack by Akira Yamaoka of Silent Hill fame.
When you get on that motorcycle, man, it just starts rocking.
Yeah, you would never guess that was Yamaoka. But there are a couple tracks in the game that feel like, if you didn't know any better, you might have guessed. Like, I don't remember hearing it in Silent Hill 2 or 3, but maybe? Like, they kind of have that vibe.
But, yeah, there's a butt butt-ass rockin' song. Yeah, so good.
Like,
Let's
so
go.
rocking.
Like let's get on this motorcycle and fuck shit up.
Like Time to Go to Hell by Breaking the Sound Barrier. How do you even know about that? There's a little thing called the internet. It's great.
Yeah, the voice acting and like the stuff in between when they're reading the stories is all a lot of fun.
Yes. The actual gameplay, you're largely fighting just kind of generic zombies.
Yeah. I mean,
like the enemy design, like again, considering it's a Suda 51 game, is like but the writing is what keeps you coming back.
It's one of those games where you could be like Shadows of the Damned, the movie. Like you could watch it on YouTube and get a really fun experience out of it. I love the voice acting and just like everything about.
By the way, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but before the game came out, some interviewer was asking Suda 51, like, is there any little hint you could give us about the upcoming game? And Suda 51's like, well, I'll say this much. Let's just say the main character has a really cool watch. And then the game finally comes out, he doesn't have a watch.
Yeah, no, watch at all.
So like, what was that?
just trolling.
Thanks.
Moving on from that, he did a Evangelion game that I didn't even know about.
I saw that, but I don't know what that is.
I think it's a rhythm game.
Leave it to Suda 51 to turn something like that into a rhythm game.
Yeah, and obviously this is not one of the games that made it. I don't think any of the Evangelion games made it stateside.
No. In fact, I didn't even know that game existed until recently. The only one that I'd heard of was an N64 game, which is definitely Japanese only. By the way, one thing about the N64 one, this is going on a tangent for a second, but I saw like Justin Silverman, like his crew were playing it, and the option to delete your save data if you have a file, if you want to get rid of it, it doesn't say delete save data, it says third impact.
No.
Which is fucking amazing.
That's funny. But yeah, I mean, here's a secret that nobody's going to tell you. Every Evangelion video game is not worth it. Like every single one.
It's cool to say that you have it. It's like most, not all really, but like most JoJo games. Like, did you know this existed? All right.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, the thing that you always wanted, which is an Evangelion action game where you're controlling an Eva and going around fighting, angels as a boss.
The closest you get is probably N64.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a fighting game.
It's literally the only game that comes close to that. Most of them are like alternate story versions of like visual novels where you can like date the girls and stuff like that. You
know what it makes me think of is like the Cowboy Bebop game on PS1.
Yeah.
And you're like, a Cowboy Bebop game, but you're just kind of flying around the ship shooting enemy ships, and you're like, that's not what the show is.
No, it has, and Ghost in the Shell is like that too. They have a PS1 game that is quite good, I should say, but it is. Like it's about piloting a Tachikoma and like
like whatever.
That is a side thing in the show. Like that is not what.
Yeah, that's that thing you recognize from the show.
Yeah. Moving on. What was the next one here? Oh, okay. So here's a cool bit of trivia. He teamed up with Hideo Kojima for one project. Do you know what it was?
Well, my guess would have been Michigan, because one of the ways to get points is to, like, look at the women's panties.
He did an episodic radio drama prequel to Snatcher with him called Sdatcher, SDATCH.
Oh, I actually have heard of this.
There is a fan translation of this out there. Me being a big Snatcher fan, I have not I haven't actually listened to it, but apparently this is about the first Snatcher that you come across that's beheaded in the beginning of the game. What's
you mean the first Junker?
The first Junker. I'm sorry, the first Junker.
Yeah, you're the guy who was going to be your mentor, and you meet him and he's fucking dead.
Yeah. I think it's
what was
John Jack.
John Jack?
Yeah.
Little John.
Little John.
Oh yeah, John Jack Gibson. Yes.
John Jack Gibson. Yeah.
Because the Little John was his Metal Gear. It was his little mech.
Yeah, yeah. So I do need to look into that because I'm sure that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Also, like seeing those two guys do something together is pretty fun in itself.
Yeah.
Next thing is we're coming up on 2012 here. Sine Mora, which is an unusual title.
It's a shooter.
It's a shmup, yeah. It's a 2D shmup with a rewind, like Prince of Persia, Sands of Time-esque mechanic.
Oh.
It is not... He's the executive producer on this, so it does not have a lot of Suda-isms.
Okay, because I was going to say this is one of extremely few shooters that I've bought because it was a Suda 51 game.
Well, it is more a Grasshopper manufactured game than a Suda 51 game, if you ask me.
Fair enough.
But it is very interesting in concept. It has a very prominent story, which most shmups completely eschew. Or nearly completely eschew.
Yeah, or maybe you'll have like a little bit like we got the bad guy, now we need to go to the next place. Like, okay.
Not only does it have a very prominent story that progresses and you play as like different characters in almost every like episode, every level you're like somebody else, which is really I don't know why, because I never beat it. Not because it's not a good game. It's very good. I got distracted from it. It's quite a good game. But it has a very dark story to it. It doesn't have like the same kind of Suda 51 sense of humor. And his stuff can be very dark too, but it also has silliness all throughout it most of the time. Yeah. Intentional silliness. And this game, like, straight up, like the storyline mentions an a character getting raped outright, and it's like one of the very few games to actually ever address the topic, let alone like straight up didn't even dance around it. It literally says there in black and white text, this character was raped by this character.
Yeah, I can only probably think offhand of like one other game like ever that like
Metal
that
Gear,
just off that I'm aware
5.
of.
Metal Gear 5.
What, Metal Gear Solid 5?
Mm-hmm.
Never played it.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, actually, no, you are right. Ground Zeroes.
Yeah,
they
that's what I mean.
heavily allude to it. They don't use the word, but it's obviously what's happening.
Yeah.
Good point. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Of all games in the world, 11th Hour, like the sequel to Seventh Guest.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That came out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. Most games do not even approach the subject, which I think is classy, actually. But when it is mentioned, it's usually done in like it's a horrific thing, in the game. So, and in this game, the tone is extremely dour. It's when you read about it, you're like, oh my god, what am I even reading? Like, this is terrible. It's awful. A lot of pain and suffering that this character went through. But anyway, it is a good game. I would give it a shot. It's pretty. It's worth your time, especially if you want to read a more mature storyline, for sure. And not mature in like, oh man, this is extreme. It's like, no, this is like, real issues going on. And then this is an unusual title that I don't think many people had access to unless you were during that like time, specific time and place. But he made an Xbox 360 Kinect game for the the motion sensing camera called Diabolical Pitch. Do you know anything about this game?
You've mentioned it to me briefly, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, so it is a game where you are a baseball player who made a Faustian bargain to be the best pitcher on Earth, and then he, of course, in a Faustian bargain, gets sucked into hell, but has to pitch his way out of it.
That's so bizarre.
So you are a pitcher who has to defeat like all of these demons and stuff with your pitching skills. Yes. It sounds like a Suda 51 game, doesn't it?
Real one-track game there.
Yeah, but like I wish I had access to this because I don't have like the original generation. I don't have any of the Kinects. I don't have either Kinect, but this one I would like to play just because that sounds like fun. And that's also the kind of stuff like that kind of setup is what I go to Suda 51 for. It's just like you're in hell and you're doing something weird.
Yep.
So our next game here is an interesting one. It's called Liberation Maiden for the 3DS, and I believe there was an iOS port of it as well. Do you know anything about Liberation Maiden here, Lotus?
No, I do not.
So this is a really interesting game because it is part of a greater collection of mini indie games made by famous Japanese developers on 3DS. I think they were bundled as a physical release in Japan, but they released. What ended up happening was like they released like one or two of them in the United States, like individually, and then on the eShop,
Mm-hmm.
and then what actually ended up happening is like to everybody's surprise, they released all of them. Which is really, really neat. People only thought they were getting some of them, and they did two separate collections, so with 3 or 4 games apiece. So the biggest one was Liberation Maiden, which is Goichi Suda's game, and it was a game where you play as the president of the United States, who is a teenage anime girl in a mech. So kind of like Metal Wolf Chaos.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But I think it was pretty fun. It was an action game, and there was an iOS port as well. Oh, and a Vita port, too.
I guess that game's a disappointment, though, because I doubt that the cute anime girl says, "Because I am the president of this great United States of America."
Well, I'm sorry. There was a visual novel sequel on the Vita.
Okay.
So I didn't know about this. But this was a really interesting experience. It was let me see here. Yeah, I forget what the. So you use the touch screen to fire missiles and lasers at enemies, and I mean it's basically like a fun little action game. But there were like a bunch of other little games. There was one called Aeroporter, made by Ute Saito, that where you're like managing an airport, which is a very Japanese thing. I think that was the last one to come over because everybody's like, that one's never coming over, and it did. Crimson Shroud, which is probably the secret best one. This one was made by Yasumi Matsuno. Do you know who that is?
I don't think so.
He's the guy who wrote Final Fantasy Tactics Ogre, and Final Fantasy 12.
Well, you know what? That's quite a pedigree there.
What's really neat about it is basically you're playing a JRPG version of a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, like literally.
Huh.
It's not Dungeons and Dragons licensed or anything like that. But
right.
You literally on the touch screen roll die. When you fight a bad guy.
So it's kind of like Eternal Darkness. It's not Lovecraft because the name Lovecraft isn't there, but it's obviously Lovecraft.
Yeah, so even your characters look like little D&D minis, and they hop on the grid and everything.
Very nice.
I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, they're set characters. They're not like characters that you can roll for or whatever.
Sure.
It is really fun, and even every once in a while, you can roll the dice in a way in which they fall out of the box. Like it has that element to it, like it's supposed to be a real thing.
Would that just be a reroll though, or does something happen?
It's either a reroll or you get like some kind of bonus or something, but you can't make it happen.
I don't think you get a bonus
purpose
for rolling out of the box. Maybe a penalty.
I don't think it's a penalty. Maybe it's just a reroll.
Because I'm thinking of Suikoden, because I've been playing Suikoden 1 and 2, and one of the games you could play is a die rolling game where you roll the dice in a cup. But you can have it so one of the dice bounces off the lip and falls out, and if you do that, it's an automatic lose. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah. And then there was this one was really good too. Weapon Shop de Omas, where it's actually a rhythm game RPG, um, where you're a blacksmith and
Huh.
you're making like mythical
You
weapons.
have to like pound the sword like to the
Exactly,
rhythm.
exactly.
That's amusing.
That one's really good
That
too.
sounds like Elite Beat Agents, where I mean,
Yeah, kind of.
the whole game is you're dancing. It's not quite the same, but like you're trying to like get a mundane task to happen like to a rhythm.
Hmm. Then they made Attack of the Friday Monsters as part of the Guild 2. So Attack of the Friday Monsters, it was made by Kaz Ayabe, who's famous for making the Boku no Natsuyasumi series, which is like my summer vacation series.
Okay,
It's like a famous Japanese only series. Like people really love it. It's supposed to be like nostalgic for childhood in Japan.
sure.
And that's one of his games. So this was like kaiju themed,
Huh.
which is pretty cool, or tokusatsu themed, which is pretty neat. Bugs versus Tanks, which was a tank game made by Keiji Inafune. We know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And probably my personal favorite, the Starship Damray, which is a first-person survival horror game
Ooh, hello.
that takes place on a derelict spaceship. I love it. It's
We already
really,
have that.
really
It's
good.
called Alien Isolation for the PS4.
Well, there's no action to it other than puzzle solving.
Sure, sure.
But maybe there is some action. It's not the focus. But I really love this game, and nobody talks about it. It's like one of those like hidden gems, as it were. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's like an eShop only in English.
Well, it makes me
Kind of
think of
thing.
like Dementium, the ward for the
Yeah,
DS.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it exists, and maybe you've heard of it, but
But this was really cool. It had a really good storyline going, like because you're basically trying to find. You wake up with amnesia, obviously, you know.
well,
So you're trying to find out what happened
I
to
wonder if
the
you
rest
were
of the
involved in
crew.
what happened.
It it's the what happens at the end. I didn't see coming.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, to be fair, you wake up not really knowing anything in System Shock 2, and in that
Yeah,
game, you are not the cause of what happened, so that's refreshing.
I I I think you would really love this game. Actually, I think
Well,
I
sure.
really recommend it to you. You should really this one and Crimson Shroud and maybe Liberation Maiden are up your alley, just because Liberation Maiden's the Goichi Suda game.
Sure.
But we should move on though. Let me see here. What's our next title? Lollipop Chainsaw, one of the big ones.
That is, man, that game is hard to put on YouTube because everything in that
The
game is
music.
licensed music, but it's
Yeah,
so
the
damn
music.
good and
And
appropriate.
the licensed music is fucking great, like Cherry Bomb,
Yeah, Fin Troll.
Joan Jett. Yeah, good shit. Lollipop Chainsaw is one of his best games. It's like imagine No
Well,
More Heroes, but with a budget.
well, that's the thing. Lollipop
Yeah.
Chainsaw plays the most of Suda 51's games. It plays the most like a conventional video game. Like
Yes.
if you're like
Well, I mean, Shadows of the Dam too.
Shadows of the Damned, it does. It plays like Resident Evil, but I mean, if you've never played a video game before and you only had Suda 51 games to choose from, Lollipop Chainsaw would probably be your most accessible.
Yeah, this is a fantastic game. Also, very influential. This game was made by. The storyline was thought up by Goichi Suda and
And
James
James
Gunn
Gunn.
of the now Guardians of the Galaxy fame, and
Yeah,
the
back
Suicide
then he
Squad.
was like of Scooby Doo the movie fame.
Well, no. James Gunn was got his fame making
Yeah,
Trauma
Trauma.
movies.
Yeah, that's why he has
Actually,
Lloyd. I never remember his
Lloyd
name.
Kaufman. Lloyd Kaufman.
Okay, I was
It's
confusing that with like Andy Kaufman. I was like, do I have
no
is that
Lloyd
right?
Kaufman.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Lloyd Kaufman shows up in James Gunn's movies. Like I saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but he was in 1.
2 is probably my favorite Marvel movie. It's really good. I really
Yeah,
like
but
this
point
game.
is Lloyd Kaufman just appears in him because James Gunn is like super loyal to like his roots as Trauma producer.
So a Lollipop Chainsaw obviously kind of like has some obvious inspiration from stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, how could it not? But it is really, really good. You play as this, cheerleader, who is, kind of like a valley girl, but she's also, they make it a point that she's also very smart.
That is the thing. Like, you often
Yeah.
associate that kind of like accent and attitude
Yeah.
with being like a ditz, and she's really
She's
not.
not.
Like, because
She's
like
not.
you see like Bill and Ted, they're like valley boys.
They're actually dumb,
but they're
though.
totally like, yeah, like they're just. I don't even know if they're unintelligent. They're just complete
No,
airheads.
Bill and Ted are not dumb, because they figure out even in the first movie that they can create a time paradox in order to solve it.
Yeah, they're just kind of
they're
like
not dumb.
they're like doofuses. But
Yeah,
like, but
airheads.
Juliet's really not.
Yeah, no, and it's really cool. She has her boyfriend's head on her hanging off of her belt, kept alive by magical tape.
Yeah, her boyfriend got bitten by a zombie, was gonna die, so ironically, to save his life, she removed his head.
Yeah, because the virus hadn't traveled to his brain yet.
Yeah.
This
So
also has
he's literally an accessory on her belt for almost the entire game.
This also has some of the best boss battles that Suda 51 has ever had.
Oh my god, the first one where he's
The
screaming
first one
words
is
at you.
Yeah.
Like, words take physical form and fly at you. That's so good.
Yeah, voice acted by the
Jimmy Urine.
Johnny Urine.
It's Johnny Urine.
Of Mindless Self-Indulgence fame. Yeah.
Just like shrieking at you.
And the music was made by him for that boss battle.
Yeah, the music's spectacular.
Amazing.
Yeah, and the bosses are each representative of a particular genre of music. Like, you have again, with like the Fintroll Norse guy, what is that called? Is that just straight up called Viking metal? Because like there's
I think so. Yeah.
There's like that sort of there's like a hippie. There's 80s funk. It's freaking great, and there's heavy references to musicians as well. Like the final boss,
Elvis.
Yeah, final boss kind of looks like Elvis. Juliet's dad looks like Johnny Cash. It's freaking rad. Also, weirdly, Juliet and her sisters are named after like Shakespeare characters, like Juliet, Romeo and Juliet, Rosaline, also Romeo and Juliet, and Cordelia, I think, is the other one from King Lear. That's just a weird little connection they have.
So this game also launched the career of Jessica Nigri, who is like one of the most famous cosplayers out there.
That's right. She was the one who like looked precisely like Juliet.
Correct. So what ended up happening? She was at the PAX event that.
That's right. Yeah.
And she had just seen the announcement trailer and put together.
Yeah, like, oh, I could do this. Yeah.
And she showed up on the floor, and like everybody was just like looking at her.
Yeah, are you here in an official capacity? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Goichi Suda was there, and this happened apparently after he talked to us.
Yeah, when the man himself is impressed.
And he was just like, "Oh God, we need to get you on board."
Yeah, that's so cool.
I think he ended up hiring her for official, official events in order to promote.
That's freaking cool.
And then she became this became her career. And she's still like one of the biggest cosplayers out there. I don't think there is anybody bigger. Really.
There is someone.
Really cool.
This is gonna drive me crazy because I don't follow cosplayers by name. There is someone who's like a professional cosplayer who I've heard of, but I'll have to look that up.
I mean, there are a lot of famous ones out there, but like she's up there. I mean, you have to admit.
Yes.
She makes an entire living off of this. So.
Yaya Han. That's the one I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, Jimmy Urine. I'm sorry.
It was Jimmy Urine.
Right.
Okay.
You're right. So yeah, this is one of the best ones. If you can't start on No More Heroes, which why can't you? It's on the Switch. It's it's very current at the moment. Lollipop Chainsaw is the other one.
I was going to say, speaking of if you can't start on, be aware that Lollipop Chainsaw is locked to the PS3 and 360.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a back compact game for Xbox One either.
Like, so much licensed content.
Yeah, and it never had a PC version, which is also disappointing.
They play Pac-Man Fever in that game. It's so good.
Yeah, and that I think that's while you're doing the Crazy Climber part of the game. Isn't that
No,
right?
it's when you're playing the regular level.
Oh, okay.
Like when
But
you're
there
just
is a crazy climber part of the
there
game,
is a
right?
crazy climber part of the level.
Yeah.
There's a Pac-Man inspired part of the level, which is not where that song plays, weirdly enough. There's a breakout kind of inspired thing. There's a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, actually, going back for a second, way back to Shadows of the Damned, but Suda51 loves his retro games, and he definitely has a love of ghosts and goblins. Shadows of the
Hmm.
Damned shouts out to that several times with like 2D segments that do the thing where
Yeah.
in the arcade it shows the map, like kind of like Castlevania. Here's where you're going to go, like that da 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 da. And
Yeah.
he also nods to ghosts and goblins in a later game that we're going to discuss.
Well, obviously he loves the old Gothic games as well because
Uh,
it's the same stuff. I'm sure he loved Castlevania too as well.
oh,
So
I mean, come on, yeah,
yeah, I mean, who didn't?
yeah.
But moving on from that, the next thing that he was involved in as a producer was No More Heroes World Ranker, which was a Japan only iOS and Android game that neither of us have
Well,
any knowledge of.
yeah.
Unfortunately, for one of my favorite series, I don't know one of the entire games. Um, and Black Knight Sword. This.
Oh yeah, I
believe,
never downloaded that one. I should.
Yeah, this is a PS3, Xbox 360 live game. Very neat looking art style that has like those kind of 2D puppet things.
Yeah, well, kind of like in Shadows of the Dam, the 2D shooter
Yeah,
segments. You're like on little
yeah.
paper puppets on sticks.
Yeah, it's unique Kamishi by art style. Yeah, yeah. So this is actually a pretty fun game. I played a level or two of it, and I obviously got distracted like I always do.
Yeah,
But
I totally forgot about. I gotta go back to this
music by Akira Yamaoka, one of your favorites.
again,
So,
like in Shadows of the
yeah.
Damned. Yeah,
And it's a Metroidvania, which is I should be playing this. I don't know
Yeah.
why I didn't. I forgot about it.
I didn't even know it was a
so it's just this
Metroidvania. I was just like, oh, a downloadable Suda51 game. How nice.
Yeah, and probably the last one I'm going to do for tonight, because we have to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have another day that we could talk. But Killer is Dead.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to mention that has the ghosts and goblins illusions. There's an enemy who has a face on his chest, like the final boss of Ghosts and Goblins. Just
like
wanted a
Lucifer or Satan, depending on
yeah,
Beelzebub. I think one of them's named Beelzebub.
This one I want to say was Lucifer. It's the guy with the face with the eye lasers that his chest is another face that shoots fire.
Yeah, he's called like Lucifer.
Yeah, like Satan I think was the ghouls and ghosts guy.
Yeah.
Except the American localization calls him Loki, which nobody bought that. We were like, nah, come on.
Yeah, nah.
We know you changed it from something.
Yeah, but Killers is Dead is another one of his action, melee combat games similar to, Lollipop Chainsaw or No More Heroes.
Well, yeah, the basic gameplay is kind of like No More Heroes, but there are winks at Killer 7, like the idea that like blood is like component of the game.
Even the art style is very reminiscent of Killer 7, even though it's not quite
like it.
You
run around like No More Heroes, but there's a sort of... It's not full-on comic book looking like Killer 7 is, but there's definitely like a cel-shaded, like, sort of filter or something. Like, it's something looks a little bit different. Like, the characters look a little more drawn, even though I don't think they are. It's like a filter, but it just has a little more of a cartoony look, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one did get a PC port, thankfully.
Yes, and the PC port came with the pre-order DLC, which is actually where that Ghosts and Goblins things comes from.
Yeah,
with like that vampire woman.
You fight a vampire. Yeah, exactly.
That was the part that I thought was so cool. There's this vampire woman hunting someone, but then like she just gets her ass kicked by like a different vampire, and you're like, uh-oh, you have to deal with this.
I believe that level to be the worst level in the entire game.
Honestly, it kind of, yeah.
It has the best aesthetic and one of the cooler boss battles, but it also, the actual level itself is terribly designed, and I got super lost in it.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
It's really, it has one of, it's designed in a way where all the hallways look like exactly the same. So
you're in like a basement, like wine cellar basement looking thing.
Exactly. Now, I actually really like this game. It has its faults.
It certainly does, but the bosses are like particularly outstanding. Yeah, like the train, that guy in the sound,
Thomas the Train.
Yeah,
Thomas
Wink.
The steam engine.
That guy in the sound, like the I don't know what it is, the audio
so
building.
Good.
That entire fight was a banger.
That was my favorite. Probably my favorite in the game.
That one's really, really good. The first boss isn't my favorite, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
The Alice thing.
It has one of the most bonker stories. Even for Suda, it is almost unintelligible.
Well, no, actually, speaking of which, because, Killer 7 was a weird game to bring over, but once they found that we liked it, they're like, let's give Suda more of a chance. And No More Heroes came over, that really solidified him. This is after we got... Now, you mentioned a lot of games in this discussion, but, sure. I'm just speaking home console. So Killer 7, No More Heroes 1 and 2, Shadows of the Damned, Lollipop Chainsaw. We got 5 big home console games.
Yeah.
Plus some other ones on handhelds and downloads.
This is his last big one until No More Heroes 3, I think. Right?
No, No More Heroes Paradise, kind of, or sorry, Travis Strikes Again, kind of. That's not really a big one.
I don't think that's a full budget game.
It's not a very big one. But my point is, though, we got 5 big home console games. We got downloadable titles. We got handheld titles. We know who Suda51 is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our localizers know that we know who Suda51 is. Exactly. At this point, they still weren't going to bring over Killer is Dead because of how fucking weird it was. Xseed had to bring it over.
Odd.
Xseed. Yeah. Xseed is the company that brings over the weird shit that other companies won't touch, like Senran Kagura, which is now more well-known because they brought over so many of them. Corpse Party, the E stuff. Again, we have 100 of them now, so now it's well-known, but it wasn't at first. Xseed brings over the weird shit. They had to bring over Killer is Dead.
Yeah, so Killer is Dead... It has a lot of the similar themes of all the other Kill the Past games that we've been talking about. But it's all symbolic and very trippy and very odd, and from boss battle to boss battle, you don't know what is going on with the progression, and by the end of the game, you're more confused actually than anything.
You fight on the moon twice.
Yeah, you fight on the moon against a guy that I don't know what his motivation is or anything. And it's like playing a David Lynch game. I'm just gonna go right out and say it. It might even be less intelligible than a David Lynch movie is, because it's just so weird.
It's bizarre, yeah.
And it also has the unfortunate burden of having these gigolo missions that are very cringy.
The date the girls, but in I don't know,
with X-ray specs,
and
you're
including Vampire Girl.
It's very cheesecakey and very goofy. So I mean, the girl supposedly likes it, but it's that gameplay during those segments isn't good either.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's very weird and not good. The Gigolo missions, Jesus Christ. Yeah, let me just I'm gonna read the Wikipedia part so I can say it right. During the Gigolo missions, Mondo. Oh yeah, his name is Mondo Zappa. Yeah. Goes out with a selection of women and his goal is to fill up a guts meter by making eye contact with more intimate areas such as their breasts, gaining more points. The women's attraction to Mondo increases by buying them and presenting them gifts.
I mean, this is very standard fare for a lot of schlock dating sims, so I didn't expect this in Killer is Dead.
Yeah, but it's
That's always how it is. Give them gifts to raise your meter. Danganronpa has that. It just doesn't have Ogle mission.
You're basically assaulting them if you're giving them stuff.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Or you're unlocking the ability to do that.
Yeah. It like I said is not without its faults, but it's still worth playing. If you
it's very flashy, and those bosses are so good.
The bosses are some of the best he's ever done.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a boss fight that I just don't care for. They're really
all unique
really
too.
Good. Yeah,
they're all unique.
That's a Suda51 staple. The bosses are unique. With the only exception I could think of is the 3 Death Sisters in Shadows of the Damned.
Yeah.
They're different, but they're not
that different.
Very outstanding. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, this is the last one that I'm going to do because we do have some
Yeah,
of
there's
his
a little
larger
more we could cover
titles.
later. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also some spin-offs that I kind of just want to get some or some smaller games that I want to get some more experience with.
Yes.
In particular, I haven't played um what's that game? Ranko Tsukihime's Longest Day at all, and I
Yeah, I
own
actually
it.
have that one.
I own it, and I got like the European because the physical version of this was only released in Europe in English. So I have it, but I haven't played it yet. So I want to do that.
Yeah,
So
the only catch with that one is I think that the video game part is like part 4 or 5 of this
yeah, you need to watch it.
anime series. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't tried it, but I'm not
Yeah,
100% sure you can watch the cartoons on your American PS3.
yeah. No, you can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
Then you're good.
yeah. Like you play the end of it.
Yes.
Yeah, is the point. And it's a shorter game from what I understand.
Yes.
But very very unique concept. But yeah, we'll go more into that later. I want to give it a try.
Yeah.
During the time we have between shows here. So we can move on to fan stuff, Lotus.
Yeah, we have a little bit. We have some comments. School Filmer has 2. One is, I did very much enjoy the last direct mini of the year, and maybe I'll try out No More Heroes and its sequel. Metal Slug 6, I have played that one in the Metal Slug Anthology on Wii. Great music in that game, and still very difficult. And the other comment is, my dreams tend to be quite weird, and I do remember one from way back then. The inspiration for this dream came from a comic I read, where it depicts one of the characters from it hunting a lion like a lion hunting creature usually does, and it turns out that was a dream, and he's too squeamish to stomp ants. Huh, a dream based on a dream in a comic. Wrap your head around that. Another one took place on a cruise ship as I explored the lowest parts of the ship. I heard voices, and inside was, this just cracks me up, the Coricon crew, as well as PJ, like Pyro Jack Frost, and Stumpy. I guess the title of this podcast isn't just for show that one time. Oh
Yeah.
my god! So, how do you like that? We're somebody's worst nightmare. And then, Connor says, I tend to dream quite vividly, and occasionally even have lucid dreams. I also experienced sleep paralysis numerous times when I was younger.
Oh, geez.
Lucid dreaming can be quite fun, although usually as soon as I realize I'm dreaming, the dream starts to fade and takes an immense amount of effort to stay asleep and within the dream. Also, my lucid dreams tend to become terrifying quite often. A big thing is mirrors. I get absolutely terrified at seeing my reflection, and this seems to manifest itself in the dream by surrounding me with mirrors. Oof. When I do look into one, my face is usually very warped and monstrous, and this normally jerks me awake. I did some research into lucid dreaming, and apparently this is quite common. Still doesn't get any less scary the more it happens, though.
Sure.
I'll bet. Especially because when dreams have their own rules, it's like, well, this is scaring you now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't know how to interact in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even lucid, like, what do you actually do about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, those are the comments. I'm afraid we do not have a question this week, which is why we were a little more liberal with our Suda discussion itself. So,
Yeah,
if anybody...
I can ask you a quick question.
Okay.
What was the last book you read?
Oh, funny you should mention that. I recently reread the Lord of the Rings trilogy because I haven't done that since, like, college. And I think I got more out of it this time because I was just able to focus more on it. So,
did you read all the preamble stuff when you were reading Fellowship?
It was more of, like, the postlude after Return of the King. Like, the second half of the book is, like, lore.
Yeah.
And I actually did this time, because the first time I didn't bother. But there's actually some interesting stuff in there. Also, the most recent thing I've been reading was the new Stephen King book. It's a compilation of 4 big short stories, so it's almost like 4 novellas.
Sure.
It's called If It Bleeds, which makes me think of the Schwarzenegger, Predator, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are 4 stories. One of them is called If It Bleeds, but I only read the first story so far, called Mr. Harrington's Phone, where someone's getting, an old man died, and somebody, like, the kid who, hung out with him in his old age was trying to communicate with him on his phone, and there's hints that it might have worked. It was interesting.
Some of his short stuff is his best stuff, if you ask me.
I agree.
Really, really good. Yeah. And his long stuff is also great too. So The Stand is fantastic.
The Stand is
easily
nuts.
His longest book. But yeah. So the last thing I read in totality was Red Harvest. Do you know anything about Red Harvest?
Yeah, that's it ripped off of the fake name for Return of the Jedi.
That's actually based on the title of Red
I
Harvest.
know. You have told me what this is about, but I forgot.
So Red Harvest is an extremely influential novel. It is one of Dashiell Hammett's famous hard-boiled detective novels from the prime era of it, around in the late 20s, early 30s, and it features the Pinkerton detective that is basically the stereotype for every film noir
Yeah.
main character. Basically, film noirs are all based off of hard-boiled detective novels from that era.
Yeah.
So all of those movies in the 30s were based off of like the stories from the 20s. But this book in particular influenced a ton of movies and video games and other stuff. But in particular, a Akira Kurosawa film called Yojimbo, which is
that's the one that I've seen. Very good.
which is phenomenal. It's one of his best movies. Probably the only second to Seven Samurai in terms of its influence, and then you have Rashomon's right up there too. But Yojimbo was, I think, the only movie he ever made with a sequel, which is Sanjuro. That's the sequel to that. But so why that movie in turn influenced a lot of other stuff. In particular, Sergio Leone's Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, a lot of the Clint Eastwood, mysterious traveler shows up and solves some problem in town and then leaves.
Yeah, so the hallmarks of a Red Harvest story, and you could spot it a lot of times in stuff like The Mandalorian these days, because The Mandalorian borrows a lot from westerns and samurai films, as did Star Wars itself. So that's why The Mandalorian is so good. It goes back to the roots of what made Star Wars good.
It's like what I've said repeatedly. I don't know if I did it on the podcast, but I've definitely said it repeatedly in other circumstances. It's like why Austin Powers is great and why the sequels are not so much, because Austin Powers is homaging James Bond and its sequels are homaging the first Austin Powers.
Yeah, the second one is a lot better than the third one, though.
It's acceptable. Yeah, the second one's all right, but the third one
no, the third one has a couple good gags, and then that's it. But Fistful of Dollars is an extremely influential Western. It's one of the best, but it's overshadowed by its progeny, For a Few Dollars More, and the final one, which is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, one of the best movies ever made of all time. It's the third one. So, and he is canonically the same character. He's the man with no name. He's called something different in every movie.
Yeah.
He's called Blondie in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But yeah, I really, but the book is extremely influential because it features a hero coming into a town that usually has two sides struggling, either two gangs or actually the law, which is corrupt law, and a gang. So two sides are fighting and in a cold war, and he just goes in there and agitates them both from both sides. He works with them both and double crosses them.
Yeah, and
so
that's
they basically
exactly
all
what
destroy
happens in
each
Yojimbo.
other.
Yeah.
He helps them all destroy each other, and then the town is liberated because all of the powerful people have killed each other, which is pretty cool.
And it's really funny, by the way, to see it in Yojimbo, especially because both sides despise each other, but neither side's henchman has the guts to actually get their hands dirty unless the situation clearly, if there's 4 against 1, they clearly advantage them. So you see literal rattling of swords. They're like, oh, we're gonna get you, just come one step forward, I'll cut you down. And when both sides have to leave, each side is like, oh, you're lucky you're getting away this time. No one does anything.
So I actually see the current the current season of Fargo is shaping out to be like this, because in this season of Fargo, it flashes back to the 50s, and two crime families are fighting in Kansas City, Missouri. Has nothing to do with Fargo.
Yeah, well, this is really a far cry, but all right.
They mention Fargo once so far.
That makes it count.
By the fourth episode, you see the Fargo Mafia has entered the game, but they are still in Kansas City, Missouri, which is really funny. Also, it fits because in Fargo the movie, it barely takes place in Fargo at all.
That is true.
It takes place mostly in North Dakota, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities. The majority of the movie takes place there. I think it ends in Fargo, but yeah, it's funny that it's called that and it barely has anything to do with it. It's probably part of the joke. So it fits that they made an entire season that has barely anything to do with Fargo. The third season has barely anything to do with Fargo either. It's just one of those things. But I like the town of Fargo, I should say.
Yeah.
But the Red Harvest is just really cool. I can imagine that nothing else had ever been written like that ever before. Just like guys just like, well, I see what the problem is. Everybody sucks.
Yep.
So he plays both sides against them by like lying to them and like agitating both sides. But yeah, in the new season of Fargo, it's the Black Mafia and the Italian Mafia have a stalemate going. They have a Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
What they did was they did the thing that they did in the third or the fourth world comics from Jack Kirby. Do you know what I'm referencing?
Never even heard of him.
Okay, so you know Darkseid. Darkseid's the bad guy of the fourth world comics. He's also like the big bad in Superman and DC Comics. But he first started off as in their own thing, and Darkseid and the good guy, the guy from the good planet. You have Apocalypse, which is the bad planet, and they're called like the New Gods.
Yes.
And they switch suns in order to ensure safety of both sides. Because if you start a war, we'll kill your son. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you find out that the hero Orion is that son. Yeah, and he's like one of the most powerful like DC
Orion
characters.
is a straight badass. Yeah.
So he finds out that Apocalypse is his father and basically like is ruined by it. But like they do that in the new season of Fargo. I'm not ruining anything. That's actually the premise of the season. Is the Black Mafia trades sons with the Italian Mafia. So yeah, it's really interesting how that's turning out. But I think that's how it's going to end up because in Fargo, like bad deeds don't go unpunished.
Yeah.
So like neither side is really. Both sides are kind of likable, but also they're also pieces of shit. They're mafia, So,
yeah.
But I'm really enjoying that, and I really enjoyed Red Harvest. I definitely recommend it. It's not as old-fashioned as you might think. Like you can read it and you can be like, "Oh, this is actually like really thrilling and snappy. It's really good." And that's all I wanted to say. I think we can wrap things up. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we probably are even running a little late on this anyway.
Yeah.
So that is the show for this week. We want to thank our fans who contributed questions. And there weren't any of you. Heavy stare. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Seriously, you guys are really good about the comments. Just leave a question of your own at the end.
Yeah, if you have anything you're curious about, feel free to let us know.
Even a personal question, I depending on how personal it is. Favorite food, that kind of thing. We've already done that, but something similar to that is fine with me.
But it gives us more of a chance to have a rapport.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you know what? Feel free. I know some people already do this in our comments, but please reply with what the last book that you read was. I'm sure there's some of you out there reading stuff I've never even heard of, and which is good.
Yeah, we're welcoming that. Yeah,
exactly. So please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. That helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesday for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on pretty much everything.
And you could follow me in my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
All right, wonderful. So we will move forward from there, and we'll catch you on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.